Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Tailosive EV, live on YouTube, brought to you via Starlink. Dishy McFlatface is doing its best on its very cloudy, misty day, so if there's any lag, if there's any frame drops, I'll be angry because we're out of beta, so this should not be a problem anymore. However, um, just remember that I'm beaming myself in video and audio form up into space onto a satellite, which is then beaming it down to a server so that you guys can hear and see me. So there's a lot going on. Anyway, I wanted to talk a bit about camping and car camping in general, just because I think it's a decent market and something that EVs kind of allow for quite a few advantages of. In the past, I talked about Model Y versus Rivian R1T, and the R1T with its gear tunnel and its camping package, and the tent just unfolds off the back and you fit this whole kitchen set and inside and everything, and people spend big money on this, but it's not just for recreational use in my view. It's not just so that you can go out in the woods and camp, but it also can end up saving you a lot of money if you're on a big road trip and you don't want to pay for hotel prices. The renting a hotel is going to cost you a lot over time if you're doing big road trips. So if you're able to find a safe, secure place to park the car and you can lay down and sleep in the back, or even my wife can actually sleep in the passenger seat. I've had a hard time doing that in the past, but maybe I just am waiting for the right car. But it got me thinking a lot about camping in the Cybertruck because of this proof of concept image Tesla put out there. It's a very roomy Cybertruck interior, like Clinton is saying, exactly. But before I get my deep dive into... Oh, wait. We've got a big question here. Bryce says, any knowledge on a confirmed midgate? Would love to have that down during camping and with dogs in the bed/back seat. Especially, can I have the tonneau cover open a little bit for the pups? Okay, I've never heard the term midgate, but I think I know exactly what you mean. Based on your description, does that basically mean you want to combine the cabin space of the bed and the cab where all the seats are? Like, I think Elon has commented on that in the past about essentially having camp mode support climate control in the vault. Is that what you mean? I'm really hoping I can get from driver's seat to truck bed without going outside. That would be nice on long drives and pulling over in the rain to sleep. Exactly, Braden Toth. Exactly. This is one of the points I wanted to hammer in today's video. Stream. But I cannot forget before we begin. I need to give special thanks and shout outs to our enhanced and executive Tesla fund people over on Patreon who have been incredibly supportive. My goodness, thank you. To Joshua Vinnick, Martin Turner, Wojciech Kaminsky, Planet Tex, Dr. Mark Choi, who is a dentist in the Woodland area, Bennett Williams, Dylan Zimmer, Jacob Halbach, and Joshua Levitsky. All of you, thank you so much for helping me afford my dream vehicle. In the process of saving for it, we should have an update for you on the Tesla fund later this month, so stay tuned for that. But okay, Bryce is agreeing with what I said earlier. He's saying, yes, absolutely. So I brought up the image here because I was hoping we could talk about it. What if the kid gate closes on you while you sleep with some technical issue? I'm hoping it's not a digital thing. But yeah, there was a comment at one point. You can look it up. I don't have that ready or queued or anything. But Elon didn't say for sure it was happening, but someone was like, can there be an option to, knock down that back area of the second row so that you have full access to the bed without having to get out, just like Brandon talked about. And I believe Elon's response was something like, worth looking into. He didn't say, like, yes, for sure, we're going to add that. He just said he would look into it. But basically, based on how Elon has replied to things in the past, it might be a tad too much wishful thinking, but I think given how late the Cybertruck is, and there seems to be a lot of changes Elon is just dropping left and right of like, oh yeah, rear wheel steering, oh yeah, quad motor, oh yeah, there's no door handles, oh yeah, it's also going to have the next generation full self-driving computer, it's also going to have better cameras, it's also going to crab walk, as Elon keeps going on and on about all these great Cybertruck changes, I keep wondering to myself, like, there's got to be more, right? And would he really drop all of the new info within a single, tweet or within a handful of tweets, and then there's nothing to actually announce? I think what would make a pretty big difference that would certainly make a big impact to a lot of you guys talking about is just having access to the bed without having to get outside the car, or at least some modularity with the seats. You know, if you could take out that second row, now suddenly you can have an enclosed, cabin-controlled, like 8-foot bed. If you just consider there's a lot of people that are driving this pickup by themselves or maybe with one other person. Or I forgot, the Cybertruck is a 6-seater. So you could actually fit 3 people in the front row and remove that second row and just have elongated elongated bed space to have even more room for stuff back there. Of course, you could have a bed, you have a mattress. The other nice thing about the Cybertruck bed is it doesn't have those wheel wells cutting into it, so it's like a full access bed, and that's partly due to the width, but I certainly think it would be like a queen size mattress you could fit back there. Any chance we could get heads-up display? Don't like the fact there is no instrument cluster. I'm sorry, David. David Lee, are you from investing or are you someone else? No, I think the thing is Elon and Tesla in general likes simplicity, and they like keeping things as minimal as possible. So at least with the Model 3 and Y and Cybertruck, it's like the car, from their perspective, the car is going to be most of the driving. Is going to be doing most of the driving, so the instrument cluster is kind of useless once you get to the point of the car doing everything for you. I understand there's a desire for that, and there's a lot of people that want an instrument cluster, but Tesla's demand is through the roof as is, and people have issues with the Cybertruck design, but the orders are still through the roof, so it's kind of not in Tesla's top priority to change anything to make more people like it, because they've already sold enough people on it. That's kind of where we're that's kind of where we're stuck right now. If someone is creeping up on your truck, you don't want to have to get out of the bed to drive away. That's exactly right. And there's also an image that I'll pull up here in a second. What if the kid gate closes on you? Oh yeah, that'd be bad. The single display is one of their significant cost savers over Model S and Model X prices. I don't personally think it's a huge one. I could be wrong. I don't know. LaCroix might know something I don't. But I personally think that the additional display behind the steering wheel, I'm not saying it's nothing. It's probably just... I think the reason they kept it on the Model S and X is because they know those vehicles are being used more for performance, right? Even the long-range options do 0 to 60 in under 4 seconds. And of course, the Plaid powertrain is even more insane, 0 to 60 in under 2 seconds, and on the Model X, it's 2.5 seconds. So having that option and, hopefully track mode and that kind of thing with the screen behind the yoke makes a lot of sense. But for everyday vehicles that are meant for scaling production, like the 3Y and Cybertruck, they're not sometimes used for performance, but they're certainly built more for scalability and affordability. So making sure the interior is as simple and as clean as possible. And having driven several vehicles without... several vehicles. All I mean is I've driven the Model 3, I've driven the Model Y. I think people get used to the no instrument cluster very quickly. And those who don't, I don't think it's a deal breaker. It's like either they were gonna buy a Tesla or they weren't. And I don't think the instrument cluster was taking that many people away. Thank you, Walter, for getting my joke. Will the front be comparable in size to the Lightning? I kind of doubt it, personally. If you look at the front of the Cybertruck, particularly renders of the new Cybertruck updated design where the windshield goes down a bit further, that frunk metal opening does not look quite large, but I frankly don't think it matters. I actually don't think frunk space is a key metric to most pickup truck buyers, although I agree the F-150 Lightning, the frunk is its best feature. But the only reason I say that is because it's practically identical to every other F-150. It is not that different at all. It's like the same kind of bed. It's the same interior. The same kind of thing you can get on traditional F-150s. The only difference that it's electric is just, I guess we don't need a combustion engine, so let's stuff the front of it with a big frunk space, which is large, granted. And I don't think anyone else is really going to touch the frunk space of the F-150 Lightning for a while. But the design of the Lightning is fairly unoriginal, unaerodynamic, and there's a market for that. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Plenty of people will buy the Lightning. Let me be clear on that. Ford has actually just closed reservations on the Lightning because they had, I think they just about had reached 200,000 reservations. And I read somewhere, I'm trying to remember where, I read somewhere that the reservation count they were reporting on did not include fleet buyers. So people buying a bunch of Lightnings for their business and whatnot. So it's well over 200,000 reservations, and it's a little bit different from the Cybertruck reservations as well. This is something people kind of gloss over sometimes, so I think we should mention it because I always see people say, "Oh, so Cybertruck has 2 million reservations, Lightning only has 200,000." Okay, first of all, the F-150 Lightning reservation wasn't letting you choose your configuration. It was basically like, do you want a Lightning or do you not want a Lightning? And if you put a reservation in, it goes, okay, you want a Lightning of some kind. It wasn't like you want a long range or you want a standard range. Whereas with the Cybertruck, it's much more common for people to have several reservations. I can think of 5 people off the top of my head that are like, I have a dual motor reservation and I have a tri-motor reservation. And now they're doing quad motor, so I don't know what's going to happen to that. But I know a ton of people that reserved multiple Cybertrucks. Some people that even reserved more than 2, just to cover their bases for like, whichever one comes out first, I want to take delivery of that one. So all I'm saying is the cancellation rate on the Cybertruck reservations is likely much higher than that of the Lightning because there's only one thing to reserve. There's not like multiple trims to reserve. But still, like, I think if you'd ask most pickup truck owners what they care about, is it frunk space or bed size? I bet bed size would come out on top most of the time. However, if you're going to be asking most pickup truck buyers what they prefer, I imagine most pickup truck buyers of today's world are going to prefer the F-150 Lightning simply because the design is traditional and basic, and they're not going to like the Cybertruck because it looks too weird. But I do think this is a bit of a learning curve. It's the only curve involved with the Cybertruck because there's a ton of people that are just turned off by it as soon as they see it because they just go, oh, it's kind of ugly and I'm not used to that. And I can kind of understand why people would be against it just in principle because they know they're going to get a lot of questions every time they show up somewhere in the Cybertruck, right? They're going to have all these questions coming in of like, why did you buy that truck? What is with that truck? Why did you get this? And people don't want that much attention on themselves. Especially pickup truck owners. They want something that kind of blends in. You know, the F-150 has been the best-selling vehicle of any kind in the U.S. for a long, long time, and it hasn't changed very much. My brother-in-law has an F-150 from 2013, and I've seen the 2021 F-150s. Very little has changed. So that market that's buying tons and tons of F-150s every year, they don't like much variation from the formula. You know, they like the look, they like the tradition, they like that form. So I'm not saying everyone will buy Cybertrucks, but I do think over time, people become more accustomed to more things. Like a good example is the displays in vehicles. That was less common of a thing when the Model S came out. They existed, but not in that way. There weren't like 17-inch touchscreens in the center console of cars. And there was a lot of concern. You know, everyone was like, whoa, you can't do a screen that big. That's dangerous. That must be illegal. You know, every time Tesla releases a product, there's a bunch of people saying, oh, that can't be legal. That's not right. And then with the Model 3 and Y, I remember it was the exact same reaction. Everyone was like, there's no instrument cluster. There's no speedometer. How do you do everything on one size display? That's dangerous. It can't be legal. It can't be done. And of course, now that's kind of become the norm. And the Model 3 and Model Y have become some of the best-selling vehicles, not just electric, but some of the best-selling vehicles in the world, depending on the region. They're selling great, and everyone's gotten used to it. And I think the Cybertruck will be the most extreme example because it's very different from just having a screen on the inside or not having a physical key or no key fob. And just using your phone or the key card. That's all learning curves that people were not used to, but they eventually got used to it. So frankly, I think I think that the Cybertruck specs will start to speak for themselves once it comes out, and once more and more people start realizing the specs are real and how much more practical it is to have a big bed over the frunk size not being as great as the Lightning. I mean, hardly anyone talks about the ID4 not having a frunk. That's like an SUV, right? Like people compare it to the Model Y, like ID4 is cheaper and the range is pretty good, and you know, like. I like the ID4. I test drove one, and my 4th grade teacher, I met up with him. I guess it wasn't really a test drive. I just met up with an old teacher of mine. He's a great teacher, and we keep up to date with each other. He asks about tech questions sometimes, and it's a great vehicle, but like I wouldn't fault the lack of frunk. Frunk is more of like a nice added perk to me. It's not like a deciding factor. Well, should you go with a Model Y or an ID4? You should go with the Model Y, but not because of the frunk. It does have one though, which is nice. Um, but yeah, I think that frunk space will not be a huge priority on the Cybertruck. But what you choose doesn't matter in the end. You can configure everything once Cybertruck is being delivered. I think you can, but it doesn't stop the fact that there are many people ordering multiple Cybertrucks. Um, I think a frunk is very important to electric trucks, so you have a good covered space for groceries and suck, even if you have a full vehicle. But that's the thing: the Cybertruck, the entire bed is covered by default. The tonneau cover is a standard thing, and the bed is like a foot longer than the Lightning's bed, and it's diagonal, so you can even store stuff above. Right now on the F-150, I don't think it comes with a tonneau cover, at least from all the prototypes I've seen, which is terrible for aerodynamics, but I don't think they care about that at all. Um, but if you're storing stuff above the bed line, whatever that's called, it's just exposed to the elements. Whereas the vault has that whole door that folds down, and the R1T has a vault covered, a tonneau cover as well, but it doesn't look anywhere near as durable as the Cybertrucks. Like you can walk on the Cybertruck cover. If you really want a driver's display, there's third-party displays. I personally got used to the single screen though. I feel like most people do. I've seen people that are against the single display that haven't owned one, but I've found very, very few people that own one and still want the cluster back. Um, Chris O'Connell, is it going to be a compressor with air tank or air inflator? High volume bursts of air are needed for inflating and seating tubeless tires. I'm mainly worried about bike tires. That we don't know exactly, I guess. The Cybertruck has air suspension, so built-in air compressor is a given, yeah. What I wanted to show you guys about the camping package, forgive the OBS window here, is this is a render, okay? So this is not a real picture, obviously. It's, you can tell it's photoshopped, but Elon did confirm that this is something they plan on actually making and selling. And as much more practical as the Cybertruck is, and functional and durable with its exoskeleton design, it can seat more people, the bed is bigger, and the range is higher. Ideally, even if the price is more expensive than we thought, it should still be really competitive. They actually have this like bed bunk over the bed that you notice. So like this tent thing extends over past the vault, but you still have the glass roof here. Okay, so that's something some people might not be aware of, is that trying to stand up in this tent or you know, crawl around in this tent is you're going to have this big glass piece of the roof that can't, as far as I can tell, can't be removed. And the trick with having a mid-gate to have access with the rest of the cab inside here is that there's a tonneau cover being stored inside the Cybertruck, as we saw with the patents, that has to unfold and roll out. And I'm curious, I'm really, really interested if they can find a way to let that mid-gate fold down so that you can have full access in the back, or of course, with modularity, remove the second row and have an even longer bed than 6.5 feet. But yeah, they have to raise up this whole bed area in order to fit the kitchen the kitchen tunnel, or not tunnel, but the kitchen pull out from the tailgate, whatever you want to call it. This all has to be stored underneath the sleeping area, and I want to see how intricate this can be, because I was actually really, really impressed with the kitchen tunnel on the R1T and how much that could do. But this has like giant boards, seemingly, at least in this render, that you couldn't fold up. I assume hopefully you'd be able to wrap this up, put everything inside, and slide it underneath the beds. But I just think that total volumetric room you would have in this tent, if you have this big glass piece sticking in, is not going to be super comfortable, and you sacrifice a lot of headspace, I would think, by eating into your bed with all of this kitchen stuff. So I think that the camping in the Cybertruck is certainly going to be better than typical trucks, at least, because you'd have camp mode to work with. But again, that's assuming you have climate control with the bed, which is not a guarantee. So I guess the way I'm looking at it now is like the interior space of the tent is going to be occupied a lot by your glass roof. The underneath your bed is where all of the kitchen supplies are being stored, but that's kind of going to eat into all of your camping supplies if you want to take other things with you, whether it be, sleeping bags or, all these chests and backpacks and sleeping bags or firewood. You don't have that gear tunnel that the Rivian has for like that additional storage. And I know that the bed is much smaller on the Rivian, but I do think you have the advantage of like you can pack around this whole kitchen set without having to take up any space in the bed, whereas this is going to eat into your bed storage quite a bit. So it's an interesting proof of concept, but I actually think it probably needs quite a bit of redesigning to make good use of space. And I hope that this like glass roof piece could be removable. I think that would be cool as well. And a mid-gate, yes, absolutely, would be extremely useful. Having something that you can, I guess, climate control stuff in the vault. Because, even if you didn't have this big tent attachment over the vault, just having a big 6.5 foot, very wide bed that you could literally treat as a bed, and you don't have to worry about like suffocating because, the mid-gate is lowered and you have access to the HVAC system in the front. Plus, sorry, I already blanked on your name. The guy earlier in the chat was mentioning you don't want someone that's like, yeah, LaCroix says if someone is creeping up on your truck, you don't want to have to get out of the bed to drive away, especially if you have that vault covered for the elements and whatnot. Having a way to quickly get to the front of the vehicle from the bed, practicality the Cybertruck has and how much better it can potentially be. Sorry for the lag. It's a 2-year-old vendor, so quite a lot could change. Yeah, I'm expecting a lot to change. I'm just suggesting what should probably change. Elon tweeted that they do want to make the camping package a thing, but I think a mid-gate would probably sell me on it a lot more than if there's no mid-gate. It's actually going to be kind of a hard sell to me. There's a way to make the stove get lifted from the bed then pulled out. I'm sure there's a way to pull it out, but I guess what I'm trying to say is if there's no mid-gate, like how am I supposed to leave the tent? If you have all of your kitchen supplies and stuff coming out from this end, this wouldn't make for a great door. This is going to be a high point, and you've got this sail on the side of your bed, so I don't think that's going to be a good way to get out of the tent. And it's the same story on the other side. Maybe you have a tent door on the very, very top, and because it's all Tesla armored glass, you just walk down the face of the truck, but that seems rather sketchy. So yeah, I guess a mid-gate is very crucial for this type of camping package is what I'm trying to say. Like, hashtag bring the mid-gate to the Cybertruck. It's very, very important. What do you know about updates for the motors? All we know so far is that they are going to start Cybertruck production, hopefully next year. Although the last interview with the Wall Street Journal, Elon Musk said volume production for Cybertruck will be in 2023. So that kind of kills anybody's hope that there would be any meaningful production in 2022. But I think most people had kind of given up on that. My thought process is if we're like starting production by the end of 2022, that'll be exciting. Slide out of the bed and onto the stovetop. Yeah. You just like step on the stove in the morning. You pull a Michael Scott and step on the George Foreman grill. Underneath the bed there is storage, and on the side of the bed there is a lot of storage. Yeah, it's up high. I don't know if there's enough storage in the sails to store a whole cooking set, but there is storage underneath the bed. But that's, at least in the rendering, that's not how they're laying it out. I don't know if you could fit, or at least easily fold out all of this stuff from the... Yeah, I know there's like an extra compartment down here. Potentially you could even store a spare tire or something down there. But like this is all lifted. This bed area is like rose up above the normal floor of the bed. And sure, you could fold it out, but again, how do you get out of the truck if that's where everything has to store, unless you find a way of swiveling everything out to the side? But yeah, I don't know. It's actually one of the slight potential limitations I'm seeing. The Cybertruck is this Swiss Army knife of Teslas that does all these things, and Elon calls it the greatest product they'll ever make. And I do think in many ways he is correct. Obviously, there's different use cases and different preferences than people have, but camping is actually might be one of the slightly weaker points of the Cybertruck if they don't do the mid-gate. If they do the mid-gate, of course, it'll be near perfect. But video of the Cybertruck unveiling, there's quite a lot of space to get into / out of the bed. Yeah, but if it's all stuffed with cooking utensils, the kitchen unit is pulled out from the back storage. Yeah, but where does it go? Pulled out. I reserved a dual motor truck, but reservation holders are not receiving any information. Yeah, no, the Tesla's not giving reservation holders any kind of exclusive information, and it would be kind of pointless because any reservation holder that got that info would just tweet about it. So you're better off just saying it for everyone. Good idea. $1,000 option to have Starlink installed in your Cybertruck from the production would be pretty neat for some people. Yeah, not bad considering Starlink is losing money on every antenna sold so far. I'm hoping that with the new squared off design they're getting that price down, but they haven't exactly detailed how much cheaper it is. Would be nice to have some kitchen equipment slide out of the slanted sides of the bed. I think that would be a better place for them, just because I think that the tailgate would be the best place to leave the bed in the event that there's no midgate. I mean, even if there is a midgate, it's going to be kind of clunky to, I don't know, like the floor of the cabin is pretty equal to the floor of the bed, which means, let me pull up another picture here. We're going to get into this. We're going to get detailed. I have like every picture of the Cybertruck in a folder. Here's the one I think you guys are referring to. But yes, I've seen basically every image that's possibly been posted about the Cybertruck I've looked at. I have a big folder full of them. But yeah, you have some space down here. And on the camping package, the tent is attached to, I mean, not the tent, but the bed where, you put your sleeping bags and you sleep is attached to this column. And everything below this little slot is reserved for the camping equipment that all unfolds, and then you got your stovetop and potentially a kitchen sink and all that. So you could maybe store some of it in here, but even then, if you fold that out, it's going to make leaving the vehicle pretty difficult. And I guess what worries me about these prototype images is it doesn't look like the midgate was dated renders, and we already know there's going to be rear wheel steering and crab walk and 4 motors, so no door handles either. So this is already a dated render, but I guess everything else they've talked about is kind of supplemental. It's kind of, oh, cool, that's nice type of feature, but the midgate, I think, could actually be a make or break for a lot of use cases, especially car camping. At least in this prototype, this big steel area is kind of built into the back of the second row of seats. So the interior floor is pretty much level or close to level with the floor of the bed. So even if there was a midgate, you still have this big second row there. So hopefully there'd be a way to fold that second row down so you can quickly climb to the very front of the vehicle and drive away if you don't want to go outside, either because it's snowy or there's, a creepy guy out there just trying to spy on you, or, if you're locked safely in the vault, which sounds weird, but I guess that's, if we're car camping and there's a midgate, that's the potential we're talking about here. Let's say you don't have the camping package and you're just sleeping in this bed, 6.5 feet. You've got the vault covering you. I have a better picture of the vault. Yeah, here you go. The vault's covered. No, it's funny that there's actually lights within the tailgate would normally cover that up. That's interesting. But you're locked inside here with your mattress or your iPad or your phone, and you're watching movies and whatnot, and someone comes up to the truck and they go, oh, hey, no one's in here. I can rob this, or I guess they might try to break the armored glass, but still. I'm not saying they will break in, but if you're annoyed and you're tired of the creepers or tweakers or whatever you want to call them banging on the glass, and they're like, hey, who's in here? I'm trying to get in, and they're shaking it back and forth. I guess you can wait it out because you're in a Cybertruck, which is basically a tank, so you'll be safe regardless, but there needs to be a way for you to access the front and drive away if you so desire. So if there's no midgate, or if that second row can't fold down very easily, you're going to have to go out either through the vault or the tailgate, so in which case you got to kind of confront whoever it is outside. So everything else that they've provided updates with, I'm like, okay, yeah, 4 motors, awesome, even faster than we can expect. It's going to have great traction control. Rear wheel steering, okay, great. That might fix a lot of our issues with the yoke. You don't have to go hand over hand when you're turning because the turning radius is so tight on the Cybertruck. Maybe it has steer-by-wire. Okay, that's great. No door handles. The doors open automatically. Okay, might be a little bit problematic, but for the most part, I think that's kind of futuristic and cool. You know, you just walk up to the truck and the doors open. In concept, that's cool. But, you know, a lot of us are like, how exactly does it know how many people are coming to the car? You know, how does it not hit someone walking by the car and that kind of thing? Those lights are invisible depending on your approach angle, not legal. Don't worry. Tesla knows how to make things legal, and that was a prototype. It also didn't have side view mirrors, so you have smart summon, right? Yeah, but smart summon only comes to the phone. So if you're in the truck, I guess you can put a destination in the vehicle and say, okay, drive here. I don't know how much better that would be. It doesn't really fix the problem because smart summon is limited to a decent walking speed. So if the guy keeps following you around, I'd prefer to see the interior seats fold entirely flat and sleep in there. I guess you might have some room, but I guess you'd have to kind of go long ways, in which case only like one person can sleep in the back. The whole vehicle is metal, even the windows kind of, so I don't know where the antenna would go except on the exterior. You could probably embed it in like the glass or something in a certain way. Maybe if you wanted solar, you wanted Starlink, you would have to sacrifice the glass roof for the rear passengers, but you'd still have the glass windshield, obviously. I really hope we get an update on the earnings call. I think we're supposed to. Starlink comment is a really good idea for camping and updates for those who don't have at home Wi-Fi. The issue with Starlink on the vehicle is it's going to be so easily interrupted because in order to receive a Starlink signal, you need the antenna to be oriented the right way. So and after all these months of using Starlink, sorry for the lag, after all these months of using Starlink, it's still pointed in the exact same direction. I have a place with a bunch of trees, so the connection's going to be probably fairly spotty. I mean, I'm not even moving, and my Starlink connection is spotty in the moment. And also, you probably are still going to have to charge people $100 a month for it because the upfront cost of Starlink is not profitable at all. The main approach to making Starlink profitable is recurring revenue. So you'd be like $1,000 at checkout and then $100 a month on top of that. I don't know how many people are going to opt for that. Let's see. Elon's now against government funding of charging networks because it would compete with the supercharger network. I don't think that's what he said at all, Jonathan. He said that the government's trillions of dollars in debt and doesn't need to be spending extra money. Also, Electrify America is not competing with the supercharger network at all. Trust me, if you compare pricing per kilowatt, oh my God, it's substantially more expensive than supercharging. Like, it's not much of a competition, and Tesla has already said that they're open to the supercharger network being used by third parties, and a lot of Tesla fans aren't in favor of that. I don't think you're kind of disconnected from reality if you think Elon's worried about the competition catching up. They're at like 80% of EV market share in the US is Tesla. They're making far more EVs than anybody else. And they have crazy demand. They're almost completely sold out for all non-performance vehicles till the end of next year. Like I believe what Elon said at the last Wall Street Journal interview. He actively said, we're not thinking about tax credits or, you know, the competition or anything like that. Like, we're just focused on trying to deliver the products people are asking for. They don't care if the Bolt sells at slightly, even if Bolt sales doubled, it wouldn't be a threat to Tesla. It has nothing to do. He has so much on his plate. The competition in competing charging networks is not anywhere close to his radar. I don't think he cares or notices. Mitch says, thoughts on the Cyberlander concept? The rendering looks cool, but I've seen the rendering of the Cyberlander, and it looks like they're kind of cheating a lot of physics. So I'd believe it a lot more if we had some actual real-world footage of how it's supposed to work. I've seen some updates from the people who started the company or whatever. I think first of all, I would not put money towards the Cyberlander. It sounds very sketchy, at least right now, because we don't know the final dimensions of the Cybertruck. and this company hasn't built anything before, as far as I'm aware. So I would not throw money at a startup company that's hoping to one day build an accessory for a vehicle that's not out yet, and we don't know the dimensions for it. So interesting in concept, but it's way too soon to actually say this is a good idea or it's a good product. Um, I get what they're going for. It's like, okay, you don't need a trailer. You can do everything on board with within the bed, which is kind of cool. But you got to wait on these accessories until you've actually. I would definitely not be taking money for accessories on an unreleased product. That's a little too soon. Um, let's see. I think it will be best to put a mattress is over the top of the back seat and the floorboard, or if the back seat is folded flat. Yeah, the Rivian's back seats don't fold flat, and I don't think the Lightnings do either. You can remove the bottom seats, where you put your butt, but the headrests and the backrests and everything, those don't come out. Um, has to be on the roof somewhere, yeah. Where would you put the Starlink antenna? Well, the new one is pretty small. I don't know if you've watched Dirty Tesla's unboxing of the squared off Starlink dish, but yeah. The interest rate is so low that it's dumb not to borrow money. People keep missing that about the national debt. I've seen bad outcomes of borrowing and borrowing and borrowing. It doesn't always end well. Either way, I think the government's bad at spending money, and I don't think that the EV tax credit will change anything. Uh, so I agree. We just don't need a point. There's just no point for it. Um, Even the EU funded Ionity network over here in Europe is almost twice as expensive as the supercharger. Yeah. All of the comparisons I've seen of all non supercharging um, EV charge stations, they're way too expensive. They're way more unreliable. They're way more clunky, and they're not as soft. Their software is not as optimized as Tesla's. So it's hilarious to me. There's people that think he's against the credit because it'll make the other companies do better. I think Elon, on the record, has said if another EV company came along and made a better EV than we did and we went bankrupt, I think that would be a good thing. If you know what Elon cares about, I think he's far more interested in SpaceX than he is Tesla right now. I think Tesla is much bigger than Elon. Um, given the fact that he's leaving the earnings calls and wanting the company to be more and more self-sufficient, and he's doing less and less, spending a lot of time in Starbase, he just thinks I think he thinks it's ridiculous that the EV competition is pathetic and they're not trying hard enough, especially GM. And the fact that the current administration kind of just denies reality, which is very disappointing and frustrating to have the president saying GM is leading this transition. And he said, like, you can go across the entire United States on a single tank of gas. It was like, what? Like, it's so obvious that he'll he knows Tesla exists, but it's like, we're not getting paid by them, so we're not going to talk about them. I think Elon thinks more about Mars than Earth. Yeah, exactly. Did we not hear somewhere that they may try to integrate Starlink with the Cybertruck? What are your thoughts? I've not seen any reputable source from Tesla or from Elon that's ever said that's happening. I've seen Elon on multiple occasions say Starlink does not make sense on vehicles. I think there was one FCC filing that suggested Starlink might make sense on some moving vehicles, but it was referring more to cargo ships, cruise ships, and planes, not so much cars. Just because planes spend a lot of the time, obviously, in the air, where you have a great line of sight to the low Earth orbit satellites. Boats, of course, also spend a great deal of time out in the wide open, the ocean. You got a great view of the sky. So Starlink makes a lot of sense there, but I haven't seen them pitching much use of Starlink on a car or a truck. Maybe the semi, just because it's so big, you could probably integrate it into the, top component here pretty well and make it fairly hidden. And it's less likely to be under a bridge or I don't know. It's not a great argument. I think people just need to understand how Starlink works a bit better and also consider the context of vehicles and how often they have direct line of sight of the sky, which is not great. After the Cybertruck and Roadster, I bet Elon will mostly focus on SpaceX. I think so too. I don't believe he cares much about what the competition is doing. Elon suddenly cares about government debt, but only for things that will compete with him. His support for NASA is notable. Yeah, he's supporting NASA because he cares about outer space, but he was asked specifically about how he felt about the tax credit. So yeah, he told everyone how he felt, which is that it's unnecessary and he wouldn't do it. Um, but I don't think government support is coming up with the cheapest option. I think Elon's always been in favor of finding more efficient, scalable ways of doing things. And he's proven to NASA that there's more affordable ways we can transport cargo into orbit and get people to the space station. And he's won those NASA contracts because that was cheaper than all the alternatives, not because he believes the government should spend more money. He's actively, the whole Starship development is trying to make space travel cheaper. It's trying to lower the cost of everything. That's why they won the human landing system contract over Blue Origin, was because their option was way cheaper. So it's all about spend less time, spend less money on things that don't need to be as expensive. I think I can build Cyberlando less 10 grand in myself. Good for you, Eric. Cybertruck is a point. It's not budget friendly for the. Is that a point? It's not budget friendly for the middle class. I don't know. I think demand has spoken pretty highly of the Cybertruck as is. We also don't know the price, Dean. We know it's probably worse than what Tesla unveiled it for, but they haven't come forward with official pricing. Elon has warned about impending population collapse, but ironically doesn't support policies like paid paternity leave and universal child care that would help alleviate it. I think he's in favor of, yeah, he thinks population collapse is a problem, but I don't think he wants the government spending more money than it already does. But what is this now? Are you just is Jonathan just on I will find as many issues with Elon as I can, and I'll just find any issue I can and put it in the chat? Assuming solar gets you 15 miles per day, what do you think it'll cost? $10,000 or less? Yeah, it's something Elon has already mentioned, that it doesn't make a lot of sense on vehicles. So I wouldn't be shocked if they end up scrapping the solar option. I think he briefly thought about doing a Model 3 or Model Y solar option, and then of course that never happened. So yeah, I'm not holding out. I'm holding out hope that it happens, but I won't be shocked if they end up scrapping it. Just because it's probably going to complicate the manufacturing line further, and we know Tesla, and we know how simple they like making everything to scale. So if you have a bunch of Cybertrucks without solar covers and a bunch of Cybertrucks with solar covers, that's just going to make everything more intricate. The wiring involved and making it a cover that can, retract and also come out, but still have effective solar cells in it. Yeah, I don't know. It's probably, yeah, I would think around $10,000 or something like that. It would definitely not be in favor of, this is cheaper than just putting solar panels on the house, which Elon has said in the past. Like, it makes far more sense for you to put solar panels on a stationary place with a lot more room. A vehicle, you don't have as much surface area as you do the roof of a house. And the house is going to be in the sun all day, whereas if you put a solar panel on a car and people pull it into a garage, that solar panel becomes useless. So I don't think that's a good reason to not do solar on vehicles. Oh, hey, Benjamin, thank you for supercharging. Hey, supercharge the channel. That's nice of you. Appreciate that. I don't know how many members we have now, but thank you. That adds to the Tesla fund. All super chats go to Tesla, by the way, all of them. So that'll help us get closer. Thank you, Benjamin. That was nice of you. But the main reason I think someone would want solar on a vehicle is not to replace charging. Maybe that's what Aptera is going for. Is like the range is so good and the efficiency is so good that you don't even have to plug it in anymore. On a Cybertruck, it's like, no, you still need to plug it in, but if you're on a camping trip or if you're on a road trip, supplemental charging is, I think, where it makes more sense to have solar. Is like, if you're going on a trip and you're going to leave your EV at the airport parking lot for weeks at a time. Okay, it's going to be sitting there, and we already have... Wow, now I don't have to spam super chats. Yeah, exactly, Benjamin. Now you don't have to spam. But basically, if you're going to be at the airport for weeks and you don't want to deal with battery drain, which is already an issue with EVs when they sit for a long time, the battery, the software updates, and especially if you have Sentry mode running, that's going to use a lot of the battery over time. So if you have solar panels on there to kind of combat that drain and kind of hold the car over, and if it is going to be parked for a long time, even coming home to the airport with a full charge, that's pretty cool. 10,000 doesn't make sense. It costs 1.5 thousand on Ioniq 5 and its solar roof isn't that smaller. That doesn't prove that it's profitable though. We don't know what the profit margins are on the Ioniq 5 solar package. Plus, it doesn't have to be a very durable tonneau cover like the Cybertrucks does. They need to find a way to shrinking that all down. So it's not the same size. Also, the one they put on the Ioniq 5 is likely much smaller than the one they would. Well, I feel like. Sorry, star linking. star unlinked. We'll come back. There we go. Elon has said that they're kind of against doing motorcycles and three-wheeled designs, which the Aptera definitely is. Oh, whoa! Holy crap! Eric the Dream Guy also became a member. Thank you. Supercharge the channel. For those who don't know, it's $2 a month. You get updates on upcoming videos. You get the badges next to your name. Helps me save for the Model Y, which I'm very excited for, thinking a lot about, actually. We've got several trips already planned for when we get this car. But thank you, Eric. That was nice of you. Appreciate that. Wow. All these members joining. I think quad motor is surely going to cost $90,000 plus. That's my guess. Sawyer Merritt thinks I'm going a little high, but my guess is 90,000. I just think that that's still, for what you're getting, it's not overpriced. Because that's going to be 4 motors, durable exoskeleton, 6-seater, 6.5-foot bed, rear wheel steering, crab mode, tight turning radius, and you're going to have the best computer ever in a vehicle because they're going to use the next generation of the FSD computer, upgraded cameras from the current cameras on all the Teslas. If you can go 500 miles per charge with all of that for $90,000, that's still tremendous value. No one can touch that. The closest vehicle to touch that range is the Lucid, and that's going to be $40,000 more and way less practical. The Lucid doesn't even have a hatch. It's a pretty tiny, crappy trunk, and the Lucid's not going for practicality at all. It's all around luxury. So yeah, the fact that you could get close to the same amount of range for $40,000 less, better acceleration, more rotors, more agility, more durability, more practicality, more utility. Yeah, $90,000 is still a great deal if that's true. I hope Tesla makes a Powerwall with the 4680 cells. That would be insane. I don't think the 4680 form factor is that useful to the Powerwall. The thing is, with vehicle design like the Cybertruck and the Semi and the Model Y, your weight matters a lot because the amount of range you can get and the amount of efficiency it takes to get that vehicle a certain number of miles matters. And I think the 4680 form factor helps a ton with weight savings and the structural pack and the energy density being better and all that. But a Powerwall doesn't really matter how much it weighs because it's just bolted to the side of your house. It's not going to impact much. So the Powerwall is super delayed because of how many people have ordered them. The demand for them is super high, and Tesla doesn't have the capacity for it. So I think what matters most is just how many can they produce. And lithium iron phosphate has a much higher cycle life. So I think LFP matters more than the cylindrical cell they use inside the Powerwall. It can be prismatic, it can be 2170. It just, as long as it's lithium iron phosphate of some kind, it'll be cheap and it'll be scalable. So I don't think 4680 in the Powerwall matters all that much. But yeah, solar, like Benjamin said, solar would be great for camping, absolutely. I'm sorry, my voice to chat. I can't believe I said that word. What did you say? I didn't see what you said, Eric, but thank you for supporting. Joshua says, I'm still debating on Cybertruck or Model 3 and need to get my driver's license next year. Those are 2 very different vehicles. First of all, if you're debating on which one, keep in mind that the Cybertruck is likely going to cost far more than what Tesla originally said it would cost, as they've removed the pricing from the website. My prediction is dual motor will be $65,000 and the quad motor will be around $90,000. Hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully it's less. But because of the insane demand. It's not all just because, oh, it's too expensive to build, but inflation is also not helping. The Model Y long range, when they unveiled it, they said it'd be 51,000. Now it's 59,000. Granted, it's a much better vehicle than what they unveiled, but still, it's much more than they thought. The rear-wheel drive, standard range Model 3 was supposed to be 35,000. Now it's $10,000 more than that. Granted, much better vehicle. The range is better than they thought, and the acceleration is better than they promised. But that came along with the price hike. So, to me, a $10,000 to $15,000 price increase is justified. I would honestly be very shocked if the dual motor Cybertruck was under $60,000, because that would imply it's cheaper than the long range Model Y, despite being bigger, and the rear wheel steering and the air suspension and the built-in air compressor and the vault and all the crazy things that make the Cybertruck. Yeah, I don't think it will be cheaper than the Model Y. If it is, that's shocking. I'm gonna think to myself, oh my god, paint is way more expensive than I thought. And maybe they find a really cheap way of building that exoskeleton at scale, or maybe they're rapidly producing the Model Ys in Europe and Texas and Fremont and Shanghai, and they just decide, hey, we're profitable enough, let's operate the Cybertruck at like a break even. Like, let's not be super profitable with it, at least for a while, and over time it'll get more profitable. Maybe they do that, but I don't think it's likely. 65,000 sounds right to me for the dual motor. But yeah, I think it definitely needs 4680s. But Model 3 is going to also cost you a lot less to operate. I think that's a bigger difference people don't realize. They just kind of think, okay, Model 3, good price, good range. Cybertruck, good price, good range. Oh, okay, I'm kind of at a toss-up. Keep in mind, parking is going to be far more challenging with the Cybertruck. Fitting that in a supercharging stall, fitting that in tight, awkward parking spaces, because it's a large vehicle. Maybe the dimensions are a tad smaller for the production model, we don't know. But still, it's going to be much bigger than a Model 3. Also, the cost of charging is going to be different, because the Model 3 is just objectively a much more efficient vehicle than the Cybertruck, because it's smaller, it has less frontal surface area, it's more aerodynamic than the Cybertruck is. So a good indication that I would encourage you guys to try out, there's this app. I've been using it a lot, and I don't even own a Tesla yet. But there's this app, not a sponsor or anything, but they're called A Better Route Planner. And you can customize vehicle trips. You can pick what vehicle you want to test. And if you compare a long-range Model 3, the supercharging cost, to a dual motor or tri-motor Cybertruck from within the app, it's not small. Like just plug in a destination where you want to start and you want to end up, and look at the supercharging cost of the Model 3 and then compare it to that of the Cybertruck. The drives I've been plugging in, because my parents live out of state, they live far away, and as soon as we get our Tesla, we want to be visiting them, and we want to be driving there possibly once a year, maybe more, and visiting them, and I have family in the complete opposite direction out of state, so just I've been plugging in these different drives. The same road trip that would cost the Model 3 like $40 cost the Cybertruck $80. Okay, and they got rid of the supercharging free miles, right? So it doesn't matter if I have a referral code I can share. It doesn't. I'm not going to get free supercharging, and if you charge from home, that's going to cost money too. So basically, the amount of efficiency. Whoa, Taker, thank you for the super chat. 500-mile plaid was canceled. Cybertruck likely be too. Oh, don't say that. Taker 610. Is your name 610 because of the potential 610-mile range? I hope that's not true. They didn't cancel necessarily the 500-mile range plaid. It was more so about them not choosing 4680 batteries in the plaid. And that, I believe, personally, I could be wrong, but I believe the primary factor with that was they decided that using the pre-existing battery supply chain that was already set up for the Model S made more financial sense, because people were comfortable spending $120,000, $130,000 on a vehicle. As long as it goes 350, 400 miles, that's plenty for an EV. The difference with the Cybertruck is that they're actively promoting how good it is at towing. They're like, this option can tow 14,000 pounds, and they're showing renders of it towing a big trailer off the back. If you're bragging about the towing capability with a vehicle, then having 500-mile range is going to make a big difference, because when you're towing, that's probably going to get cut in half, maybe more, and it's going to be more like 250 miles of range with a trailer, or 200 miles of range with a max payload. So I think that it makes more sense to keep the 500-mile range Cybertruck, and the website has not removed mention of that. If you go to Cybertruck's landing page, it still says up to 500 miles of range. So obviously, I don't know anything. I don't have inside sources. I hope that's not correct, but I think there was a lot of legitimate reason to not do the 500-mile range Plaid Model S, because the range is kind of overkill, and you already have plenty of batteries from your existing suppliers that you can use to get plenty of range from that vehicle. And the Cybertruck doesn't work with any other batteries. The Model S could fall back on 1865 batteries. I believe it is using 1865s, but some people think it's using 2170s. Sandy hasn't told us yet. He's going on his road trip with the Plaid Model S right now. So when he does his teardown, he can tell us how big the batteries are. But I think the 500-mile range Cybertruck is not because people want to drive for 500 miles. It's because it's going to be towing stuff. So having that extra range helps. Yeah, just park on the cars if you Cybertruck. I do think Elon found another motivation in Tesla bot that in Dojo is a huge goal, possibly bigger than FSD. I think it's another huge goal, but there was also an internal meeting where he said that he wants to be on Mars by 2030, which we all know that's a crazy timeline. He probably won't be on Mars by 2030, but it shows that, okay, even in Elon's optimistic world, he's planning on being away from Tesla in the next 9 years or so. So long term, I think he's far more interested in SpaceX. I think he's more passionate about that than he is making sure Tesla Bot works out. I think Tesla Bot, above everything, was a marketing, not a marketing, that's not the term, a recruitment tool. Basically, they want as many AI engineers and software engineers coming to work at Tesla as possible, and proving that we're going to do more than just self-driving tech was a very useful recruitment tactic, as it showed. They mentioned at the annual shareholder meeting that they had a huge number of applicants after AI Day for neural net training and software engineers, which is what they wanted. So they are hiring people, yes, to also work on the humanoid robot. They've posted job applications about actuators and motors that would be used on humanoid robots, but I don't think that's what long-term Elon wants to spend his time doing. I think he would much rather have a self-sustaining colony on Mars and get to Mars and die there. I think that's his driving force, because he's worried. He's probably worried he's not going to be able to get to Mars before he dies, as he's getting older. Whereas Tesla Bot, I think, is something he just views as an eventuality. It's like technology was headed in this direction anyway, so might as well do it right. And if we're going to be doing a bunch of neural net training and software labeling through computer vision and all that, let's just get ahead of ourselves and start hiring for that purpose. Cybertruck is Elon's baby. He said if nobody else bought it, if they would still make it. I highly doubt it will be canceled. Yeah, it might be far more expensive than we think, but I don't think the 500-mile range will be canceled. Personally, I can see why they canceled the Plaid, though. It makes sense to me. Why was there a Cybertruck trip? Why was there a Cybertruck trip more expensive? Was it because of weight? Well, weight's one of the factors, but yeah, it's a bigger vehicle. It consumes more energy per mile. Think about it. If you're moving something that's larger, that's displacing more air as you're driving. You're driving something with more motors, bigger batteries, bigger tires, which doesn't help. A bigger frontal surface area. That's more drag. Yeah, it's going to require more energy to move a big steel pickup truck than it is a small mid-sized sedan. Just because the materials involved, weight's one factor, but yeah, the amount of energy you consume per mile will impact the ownership experience. So I think like this too, because in the back of my head all the time I'm like, yeah, well, what if I got the Cybertruck? How could that be better, and what would that be good for? So I research these kinds of things, and I'm like, there's probably more factors people should be aware of. It, like, not all range is created equal. How that range is achieved makes a big difference. So even if a EV has an equal or close range to the Model Y, and you go, okay, You know, the Model Y goes a little over 300 miles, and the Mach-E has a rear-wheel drive option that goes around 300 miles. Okay, same range. But then you realize, okay, I can't use the supercharging network. I have to use Electrify America. And the charging rates of Electrify America are far higher. So if you plug in a Mach-E on a better route planner, and you also realize that the Mach-E is using a much larger battery to achieve that range, and it's a much less efficient vehicle, the cost of ownership of driving that vehicle on a road trip is actually way higher. Despite the range being the same and the price maybe being the same, you're consuming more energy, which is going to cost you. So that's why I laugh when Jonathan brings up he's worried the Electrify America network will compete with this. Like, I don't think he cares at all. Couldn't care less. Oh, we got another super chat from Taker. He said the Rivian weighs 7,000 pounds, Hummer EV 9,000 pounds, Cybertruck 10,000 pounds. I don't think it'll be 10,000. I actually there's a decent amount of evidence to suggest that the Cybertruck will weigh less than the Rivian, despite being larger, mostly thanks to the structural battery pack and the exoskeleton. If you go back and watch, if you don't believe me, go back and watch the Cybertruck unveiling. Yeah, with the window breaking and all that. Still, Elon mentioned that they don't. There's the animation. Sorry, it took a second. They still expect the Cybertruck to not weigh much more than the typical F-150. He said that they weren't cheating much on weight, but the mass of the vehicle, where most of the weight is, has been pushed to the outside. The mass has been pushed to the exterior, which is kind of genius, and it makes a lot of sense considering a lot of Tesla employees overlap with SpaceX and weight savings and durability and the lag. There's probably birds jumping up and down on my Starlink antenna. Okay. He said no more than an F-150. I don't quite believe that, just because of how how much stuff they've added. You know, back when they unveiled it, he didn't say they would have rear wheel steering either, but that's going to be added, and that's going to add to manufacturing complexity. So that's going to add to your overall weight. The steel they're using on the Cybertruck is not inherently lightweight. I mean, it's lighter than other types of steel, but in order to make it strong and bond pretty. Yeah, full-size trucks aren't meant for terrains. Okay, there it goes. It came back. Big F. But the most aerodynamic shape you can achieve in a vehicle is basically a teardrop, and the Cybertruck is the closest to that. You know, having that open bed design on the Lightning is close to just having a parachute behind your vehicle at all times. That's picking up a lot of air. The F-150 Lightning even has like a big old fat antenna dangling out the side. It doesn't even have the, internal antenna. I don't know why they did that, but it is not, and the mirrors on it are huge. The Rivian is probably a little bit better, but it's still a fairly bulky, big front, big drop off on the back with the bed, and it does have a tonneau cover, so that might help a little bit. But as far as aerodynamics go, I'm fairly certain the Cybertruck is the best in that regard. And to combat their bad aerodynamics, Rivian and Ford basically just have to throw a ton of batteries at the problem. So for the R1T to go 314 miles on a charge, they have to throw in a 135 kilowatt hour battery pack. It's huge. It's a huge battery, and that adds to the overall weight. And it's not a structural battery pack either. So that's why the 4680s and their improved energy density and the fact that they're structural serves a purpose. And it makes a lot of sense that, you have some SpaceX engineering expertise applying to this truck design, because every aspect of the truck they're trying to make dual functionality. So the exoskeleton doesn't just hold the vehicle together, and that's not just what keeps the parts mounted and whatnot, but that's also your exterior. That's also what prevents you from the elements, and that's what makes it so durable and rigid. And that allows you to bypass a lot of that excess weight that would normally have to be at the bottom. Now that's replaced with a structural battery pack. So your batteries are holding your energy, but they're also holding the car together. Your exterior is holding the car together, but that's also your exterior, protecting you from the outside elements. So that's why it's such a genius design in my view, and I'm very excited for it despite not being in the market for it. I think it's a really, really smart approach to designing an electric pickup truck, because this is definitely not something you could do with a gas pickup. This type of design would not work. So I'm thankful that Tesla thinks outside of the box and does crazy things like this, because clearly no one else in the industry is anywhere close. But I think it will become more and more evident once the Cybertruck starts being delivered and mass produced that you kind of have to make these decisions in order to achieve the insane specs that the Cybertruck offers. You're not going to be able to hit 500 miles of range for the price Tesla offers, or that amount of durability and structural integrity that Tesla has with a traditional body on frame design. So I'm predicting quad motor Cybertruck probably around 6,000 pounds. I think it'll be a bit lower than the Rivian. But there's other people out there that think it'll be even less. I know I've seen certain people think it'll be under 5,000 pounds. I think that's kind of crazy, just because the Model X and S are much smaller vehicles with less complexity, and they weigh over 5,000 pounds, and they don't go 500 miles on a charge. The Cybertruck's supposed to go 500 miles. That's going to require a crap ton of batteries. Doesn't matter how efficient that truck is or how good those powertrains are, you're going to need a lot of batteries to go 500 miles. So that's going to add to the overall weight. 4680s will be the lowest watt hours per kilogram of any battery. Yeah, I'm sure it'll handle amazing, but yeah, you're still, I think, gonna have a hard time getting under 6,000. Um, so that's my ballpark estimate. Maybe maybe under 6,000 pounds if you have the dual motor option. But I think they're gonna scrap the tri motor. I know there's people in the chat earlier that were predicting tri motor one price. Yeah, electric cars are cool says 77,000 for tri motor. I don't see the point in the tri motor when the quad motor exists. Like what's the point of having a high range, high accelerating truck but doesn't have the best traction control if you're going to offer that alongside? Like the thing I would suggest you look at is Tesla's current configurator. They rarely offer more than two options. And if there are more than two options, it's because one of them is performance. I think the only Tesla they're currently offering where there's three separate tiers is the Model 3. And one of those has the same battery as the long range, and it still has the same number of motors as the long range. It's just got kind of beefed up brake calipers and a spoiler, and it's lowered a little bit, and performance tires. But a lot of that components that they put into the long range Model 3 is also in the performance Model 3. So if you're going to have a Cybertruck with different number of motors and different sized battery packs, two is already fairly complicated. I know that sounds overly simple to a lot of you, but relative to the Model Y, which you have long range and performance, Model S, long range performance, same battery pack, but the only difference is the Plaid has the extra motor. And then Model X, long range Plaid, that's it. They don't like having more than like one or two battery sizes. So I have a hard time believing they're going to do three battery sizes or three different motor options when they already are trying to keep things as simple and as clean as possible. So I'm predicting quad motor to start with, and then maybe like 6 months to a year later they do dual motor. But it will be just quad motors for quite some time. Let's see. If anything, Cybertruck has more potential to become successful worldwide than Model Y, which is just a crossover for developed countries. I don't necessarily agree with that, because the Cybertruck is huge and pickup truck sales are far, far, far lower outside of the U.S. Pickup trucks are everywhere here. Don't get me wrong. I can look out my window and probably watch 10 pickup trucks go by if you gave me 2 minutes. They're very popular in the United States. Pickup truck sales in Europe, way lower, even though the population is higher than the United States. It's like I think the last data I saw on it was like 1/10 the amount of pickup trucks are sold in Europe than they are in the U.S. And there's like twice as many people in Europe. So it's a much, much smaller demographic. Plus, in other countries, pickup trucks like the F-150 don't do that well because it's a very large truck. And I think the Cybertruck is quite big. Maybe, like Elon said, they might do a smaller Wolverine edition version of the Cybertruck for international use, but I don't think that's going to be high on the priority list, considering Model Y is not even fully ramped yet. The production hasn't technically started in Berlin, and they got to ramp that, and that's going to take a while. They're not done with the 4680s. And once the Model Y is ramped, Elon has expressed far more interest in doing a European style hatchback after the Model Y is done in Europe. So I think after you ramp Model Y, then you're going to have to spend a year building a whole separate side of Giga Berlin that's just going to be dedicated towards the Model 2 or whatever. Um, the UK order page doesn't list any options. Yeah, that's everywhere. The US order page doesn't list options either. But I think that's because there's a bunch of options changing. But yeah, I feel like Cybertruck is not going to sell incredibly well overseas, whereas I do think Model Y is already proving to sell very, very well in China, and will likely sell very, very well in Europe. Um, Cybertruck, I don't see selling as well. The market, the addressable market for crossovers is way, way bigger. So I think the Cybertruck has potential to become great popularity, super duper high volume in the U.S. because pickup trucks sell really, really well here. But outside of that, not so much. Um, let's see. What is Alpha saying? I'm worried about how the Cybertruck would fare where I live. It's so cold with so much snow. It would do much better than any car on the road currently, Alpha. Um, it'll have plenty of raging capability to get from point A to point B. Superchargers. Yeah, Wolverine edition would be amazing. The laws have to be changed for Cybertruck in Europe since weight with cargo is over 3.5 tons. Well, we don't know the exact weight, so it's hard to say. Um, I think they would have to redesign it to be much smaller if they wanted it to sell in Europe. I don't think they're going to build Cybertrucks at Texas and import them. I'm pretty sure they're not going to deliver any Cybertrucks in Europe, Australia, or Asia until they can be built locally because they know they'll sell them for whatever they charge for them here in the U.S. That's for sure. Um, a Cybertruck with all-motor drive and big tires will do great in the snow, and it will also rust far less than all traditional vehicles. I want a Cybertruck in Germany. I know. We got a bunch of European fans that all want the Cybertruck, and people in Australia that all want it. Everyone wants it, of course. But I'm just saying, logically, um, I don't see why they would designate certain Cybertrucks to be exported from Texas to other countries when they can sell all of them locally. And the pickup truck market is far larger here than it is overseas. Um, Maybe a version without the bed. Those are not common here. All of these ideas are great. Don't get me wrong. I want a Cybervan too. It's just they're going to complicate manufacturing, and Tesla's going to sell every Cybertruck they can make for, I think, at least 2 to 3 years. Once they get production up and running, hopefully at the end of next year, there's still like even if they charged $100,000 for every quad motor, they would still probably sell every one of them because of how much pent up demand there is, and the fact that so many people do loans now. Like the final purchase price of the vehicle doesn't even apply to so many customers anymore. Like everyone just looks at the monthly cost of Teslas, and that's part of the reason they're likely selling so well is because so many people are comfortable getting loans. If I had a more predictable income, I would probably be more okay with it, but my income is not predictable. It's incredibly volatile, and some months on YouTube are great, and some months are not so great. So I don't want to get into debt because of that, and I want to make sure that when we buy the car, we can afford all of it, or at least a substantial amount of it, to the point that I don't have 1% and it's really affordable. It's like, are you doing loan applications and getting 1%, or are you just assuming everyone can get 1% loan application? It's not that simple. Especially in the cities, a smaller hatchback would be awesome. The Model 3 barely fits in some of my friends' garages. Yeah, I think that's what I don't know. I go back and forth on it, but I think that's what the Model 2 will be, is like a compact hatchback type design. So, yeah, not sure. But at the same time, I also did a stream a while back on how I think Tesla could probably just update the Model 3 manufacturing process and make it way cheaper. Um, but yeah, a version with 9-person seating would be dope. It's just going to complicate manufacturing more. So, like Tesla and Elon has said, even if they had 40 different models to choose from, the limiting factor is not the type of vehicles they have; it's the number of batteries they have. So they're optimizing their production line for scale of batteries, not so much variety of models. Of course, it would be cool if they had an SUV, a full-size SUV, bigger than the Model X, with more seats, and a Cybervan, and a compact, and all the different models we want. But they would still deliver probably the same number of vehicles and less profitably, because all of that manufacturing complexity would add up and make it more expensive to operate all their factories. I don't think Americans realize how big of a difference a European style car would make to a ton of people. I think most people realize it. It's just not. It's not an untapped market in my view, because Tesla's selling like crazy. All of the vehicles they're currently selling are fairly substantially back ordered, other than the performance models. So if you're selling every vehicle you make, it doesn't really matter if they're compact or midsize. If people are buying them, they're desirable. Um, Taker super chatted again. He says, "Didn't Elon say 3,500 pound payload / 14,000 pound towing?" He did, but he did not say the curb weight of the truck empty. That's something we don't know. So thank you for the super chat, Taker. But yes, the advertised specs at the unveiling was that the tri-motor could do 14,000 pounds of towing. That could be totally different now, though, because they've switched to the quad motor. And if you go back, other than pricing, which Tesla typically doesn't hit when it comes to how affordable their vehicles are, but all the other specifications like range, acceleration, and torque, and all that, they usually beat all of those specs by the time they deliver the vehicle. So it's fairly likely that the payload or towing capacity might be even better than that by the time they're ready to deliver. I think he said he would check this. I don't remember a tweet about a 9-seater Cybervan. I only say that because I followed all of the Cybertruck related tweets pretty closely, but I don't recall that. What about a mount foot rear facing seating in the bed? Could be a really simple add-on. Hey, that's great potential for the third parties, right? This is another reason why the midgate matters, right? Please, midgate on the Cybertruck. That's what we need. Like, if you could have HVAC access and you could lower that wall between the vault and the back seats of the truck, if that was removable, yeah, you could sell like a little third-party add-on that bolts into the bed, and maybe you compromise on your bed size a little bit, but you could fit 9 or at least 8 people in the Cybertruck, as long as they got seatbelts. I thought the 7-seater Model Y was ridiculous and impossible, because I sat in Model Y Mike's Model Y, obviously, and I sat in the second row, and I was looking behind me. I was like, how the heck are you going to fit 2 seats back there? There's no room. Then we folded the seats down, and I crawled back there. I was like, how the heck is a 7-seater Model Y supposed to work? And maybe it would make more sense if they were rear-facing, but they did it, and they stuffed 2 extra seats back there, and I didn't think it was going to work, but it actually, kind of works. It's not great. By midgate, you mean pass-through? Yeah. Basically just combining the bed and cabin space in some way, shape, or form. I don't think it's legal to do that anymore. I think there's probably a way to do it as long as you've got seatbelts, and the vault is closed. If the vault is open, it probably isn't legal, but I think if more Americans experience hatchbacks and small cars, they will love them. Oh, man. I've had this conversation many times. Yeah, if you knew how many pickup trucks were sold here every year and how little they are utilized, you probably wouldn't believe that. There are small cars available in the U.S. All right, it's not from lack of vehicles. We had one, actually. We had a fairly compact, but it was a Ford compact. There are plenty of compact vehicles available in the United States that just doesn't people don't like them as much. They just don't feel as practical. And also people buy cars kind of as a reflection of themselves, and they know they're going to be seen in it, and they know if they drive around a smaller car that looks a certain way, like that type of thing. Yes, the video's lagging for everyone because of Dishy McFlatface looking for a satellite, but it's very cloudy today. That might impact it a little bit, I don't know. But there's been other days where it's been very stable and very cloudy, so I don't know. I'm subscribed to your channel with all notifications selected. I didn't get a notification for this live stream. Is there something you need to do at your end to enable notifications? I'm sorry, Environmental Canadian. No, I don't know why you're not getting notifications for it. The only other thing I do is I tweet out 5 minutes before I go live. I send a tweet saying going live. But yeah, YouTube notifications are weird. I don't get it. Alpha says bigger car also safer than smaller car. that might be why. Maybe people don't like feeling like they're in a tiny car. Maybe it's a cultural thing just because there's so many big cars in America. There's so many F-150s driving around. There's so many SUVs driving around that people, if they drive a small car, they feel like they're going to get smushed. They're going to get crushed, so they just don't sell as well. And like the soccer mom approach is more popular here, just having a big car that you fill up with gear for your kids, and you fill up with groceries, and you go to Costco and you buy a bunch of groceries in bulk, and then you load up your hatch and your trunk with all this crap. That's just what people are into here. I don't think it's lack of options. Um, yeah, there's advantages if everybody was into smaller cars. Sure, yeah. I think we've had this discussion many times of just like if you could make everyone think or believe a certain thing, it would solve this problem. It's like, yeah, we wouldn't need to lock our doors if no one committed crimes. That would be locks wouldn't be necessary if everyone was moral and didn't steal things from each other, and we wouldn't need police if there weren't you know people breaking the law and that kind of thing. So a lot of problems could be solved if you could change everyone's way of thinking, but you definitely can't. Even as a European, I wouldn't want a small car in America. Feels like you're in constant danger. Yeah, roads are much wider. Yeah, Americans are more likely to say, go big or go home. Bigger doesn't always equal better, but if we're just talking about market trends, a lot of people prefer bigger. Also, bigger doesn't not equal better. That that should be mentioned. Um, I know Mike, for example, his reason for uh, not necessarily going over a Rivian over a Cybertruck is because the R1T is kind of small, and he wants a bigger truck. So in that case, sometimes bigger is better. I always wanted to drive a car shaped like a ramp so that big truck people flip over when they try to hit me. That sounds awesome. You'd have very low ground clearance, but yeah, great idea. I know I glitched out. I sent you the tweet about the 9-seater Cybervan via the Twitter inbox. Okay, let me find this. Do you think Apple still have plans for EV, or they might just give up? I don't think they've given up, but yes, I know Apple's been working on an EV for a long time, but I personally think Apple works on all kinds of things that they never release, especially if you're basing the Apple EV around, um, hey, they like uh, they hired such and such from this car company, and they're hiring people for self-driving, and they're testing this and this. They've hired a bunch of employees for projects that they never went through with. Like I remember back in the day when they were hiring people to make dedicated TVs, and they never made their own dedicated TV, or they hired former Google assistant engineers, and then nothing really changed with Siri. So it's like people, I'm sure Apple's working on a car. It's just it doesn't guarantee that it'll come out. There's all kinds of crazy moonshot projects Apple will come up with that never see the light of day. And I personally think the car is one of them, because Apple does not like doing their own manufacturing. And in the vehicle space, it's very, very difficult to be profitable. And Apple does care about profit margins on all of their products. So they would not sell the Apple Car at a loss. They would want it to be, a very profitable vehicle. So they would have to charge a lot for it, and they would have to outsource the manufacturing, which would just mean it would probably be something like the Lucid Air, and cost well over $100,000, and it wouldn't make that big of a deal in the auto space. And Apple probably is going to see how complicated it is to sustain have a decent charge network, and the manufacturing and the software, and all of the work they put into it would not see a great return. So I'm sure they've got something prototype cooking, but the fact that they haven't built their own factory from the ground up puts them at a severe disadvantage from everybody else that's already in the EV space. So they'd be much better off buying out Lucid or something like that, or just doing software, like partnering with a existing car company and just saying, we're going to do enhanced CarPlay. So now the car only runs with CarPlay, and now CarPlay has access to your range and your AC controls, and the music is all just powered through Apple software. But I don't think it would be the same as like, oh, we need to do our own hardware for our phones and laptops. It's a lot more difficult to be like, we're going to do our own hardware for the car. It's like, yeah, that's a much bigger challenge, to powertrain, battery, charge network, all of that. So I don't think it'll happen. I think they're way too late. Um, okay, I see the tweet you sent me. Someone said, but it's edited. What did he respond? Is this one screenshot? Cybertruck based SUV with rear facing third row or easy access would make for a killer 9-person million mile green sports car fast SUV to evolve us beyond minivan in conventional SUV market. He said, interesting idea. So I would hardly call that a confirmation other than just Elon saying, okay, kind of neat. But it's a little different from him saying, 4-motor Cybertruck will be what we start with. So I want them to make it. Don't get me wrong, I really do. But I wouldn't get my hopes up for it. All he said is interesting. Do you think there will be camper transformed semis, or is this too much? Hey, if they deliver them to people, they can do what they want with them. I don't know how many people are interested in turning a semi into a camper, but yeah, I could imagine someone with enough money would do it. Um, my Mike's wife wants a bigger truck, hence I guess I also want a bigger truck. That's how it works. You are one. You are you are brought together. Realistically, is the Cybertruck too big for everyday use, considering tight parking lots and narrow spaces? Is it practical? I would say it's certainly less practical than a Model 3 or Y for tight parking spaces, but it's kind of a weird question to say, is it too big for everyday use? Because it's still smaller than the best selling pickup truck. So if you're talking about for the grand picture of the entire pickup truck market, it fits in line with the most popular selling vehicles. So I wouldn't say it's so big that it's gonna flop because we can't build trucks that big. It's like, no, most trucks are that big. The most popular trucks are the size of I think the most popular trucks are actually bigger than the Cybertruck. Not to mention, Cybertruck will park itself a lot of the time, and have a lot of cameras surrounding it. So that and rear wheel steering should make it easier to park. So they're going to do the best they can to make it manageable. But I don't think it's necessarily too big. They've just catered towards the most common pickup truck buyer, which makes sense. Um, I understand, though, why that is popular in America. You have to use your car so much more and go much further. Yeah, I mean, I've run into the situation a lot where, like, the use case in America of like, let's take a road trip and we're all going to get in this car and we're going to bring our tents with us, or we're going to go to the beach and pack our surfboards and that kind of thing. It's just a small compact car gets the job done, gets you from point A to point B. But I think an argument I've had many times with lots of people is that cars are not just for transportation. That's why I don't think robo-taxis would kill off car ownership. Is it's not just about getting someone from here to here. It's also about moving things, and it's also about taking spontaneous trips, and people buy different cars depending on their features that they like, and it's not all about just what is the most affordable way to get me from point A to point B. Otherwise, everyone would be driving the cheapest car available, and that's not true. So many people buy cars that are way higher priced and way less practical, but they fit their lifestyle better because they want more space, or they want a bed, or they want something that can tow, or they want something that can throw their skis on or their bikes on, and their surfboards on, and they want something that can go off road a little bit. So it's very much more, even places with a lot of public transportation, there's still a lot of car ownership, and there's adequate public transport that people could use, but there's more that goes on with vehicles. Like New York City has an insane amount of public transport infrastructure, but it's still like 45% of people there own cars. In Australia, they have a ton of money spent on public infrastructure, and there's still 2 cars per household. There's still a bunch of people that, yeah, it's about drive, it's about power. I should have gone into that, Pietro. That's a good one. It's about drive. How do you feel about if all-wheel steering comes to all Teslas? It's probably a little intricate and complicated. It might add to the overall cost. I mean, if you can do it in a reasonable, affordable way and it doesn't eat into efficiency, I guess go for it. But it's definitely not necessary. The turning radius is a little crappy on um, Model 3 and Y, but it's fine. Are you concerned with the vault cover sealing out dust well? I'm concerned that will take a lot of iteration to make reliable and robust. If you can walk on it, it's pretty durable. I don't know how much dust it can collect. But yeah, that's a valid concern. I could understand why someone would be worried about that. Um, it's just going to be an extension to Apple Pay, but for cars, any car company will be able to um, have Apple software. Yeah, that's kind of how it is now. I know that Apple cares about their ecosystem. I'm in that ecosystem. I'm deep within the Apple ecosystem, but I just don't quite fathom um, what the Apple car would have going for it that a typical car with CarPlay wouldn't have. Like how does a car with CarPlay not integrate into the ecosystem as well as a dedicated Apple car? What is it? Messages, Siri, Maps, music, all that stuff you can already do through CarPlay on any car. So what is the dedicated Apple car going to have that CarPlay on any other car doesn't? I don't see it. And also they've been talking about it for years, which is why I'm so doubtful about it. Like um, I think uh, I remember back in 2014 hearing that Apple was working on a car that would come out in a few years. And here we are in 2021, and now we're hearing it'll come out in 2025. And I'm like, sure. Sounds great. Like, I'll believe it when they see it, but I've seen far too many reports claiming it's around the corner, and it isn't. So, yeah, I don't buy it. I didn't really understand that. Is the steering not linked between front and rear wheels with all-wheel steering? Well, it's kind of linked, but it might be more digital because Elon said that the all wheels can turn in the same direction and you can do crab walk. So if you can do that, then they're not necessarily attached. Um, let's see. How do you feel if Tesla makes a Cybertruck, but the bed is covered so you can put 8 to 12 seats in it? It's not useful for me, but it would be cool. That would be impressive. What do you think about the bombs Elon dropped in the recent interview with Wall Street Journal? Yeah, I watched that interview live. It was cool. It wasn't a lot of bombs. It was kind of stuff I already knew about. Um, I don't agree with everything Elon says, but all the stuff I saw Elon say in that interview, I agreed with. It's like we don't need this. We don't need this amount of spending. It's not necessary. Um, why till now we didn't see any car brand made a deal with Tesla software to use it with their EV? Like I think Elon said he will be happy to do so. Yeah, it's kind of like I don't know what the royalties involved with that are. Like how much do you have to pay Tesla to get access to the software? But also, it's probably just a bad look for the car companies. If you're paying another car company to put software on your car, that's probably just not a. It says something about how you don't value your own software very much. So I can understand why Legacy Auto doesn't want to do that, even if it is available. And I'm not entirely sure if it is available. Um, let's see. I don't think the Cybertruck's too big. Small cars are easier to maneuver in tight situations. That's the main reason I don't own a pickup truck now. Not everyone can charge at home. What do you think is the future of charging? Charging at home. Sorry. I think that the vast majority of people will be able to charge at home. And those who live in apartments, over time, it'll become more and more common to see basic level charging that goes in wherever the car is parked. I don't think most cars are parked alongside streets. Most cars are parked either in garages or in parking garages for apartments where you'll have big, buildings full of cars and they already have lights in them. So it will require a bit of added infrastructure, but I could see it long term. I'm talking decades here. Eventually, certain apartments will offer charging spaces. I actually, there's a condo that one of my family members lives in, and they already have charging stations in their building. So you have to take an elevator and whatnot to get to their place, but it's more so of an apartment than it is a condo. But there's a big parking garage where all the cars go, and there's already 8 charge stations, and I recall seeing Teslas in there. So the infrastructure for that is far, far cheaper than trying to make it so that everybody will have to supercharge, or everybody will have to go to a fast charging station once a week or twice a week or that kind of thing. So I think long term, that'll just become more and more typical. If I'm already seeing it in parking garages in 2021, I expect that trend to continue over the next few decades. So charging, basically, you're going to do the bulk of charging wherever the car sits most of the time. I think that's what the future of charging is, whether that's your garage or a parking garage, or I don't know, but most of it's going to be taken care of, I think. How do you think his meetings will affect common people's view on the government? I don't know. It's it's okay in my view. The government's done a lot of things poorly, so it's okay if someone shares their opinion on why they think the government's bad at doing things, and then someone else sees that evidence and decides, yeah, I think he's kind of right. I don't see anything wrong with that. What about people that live in tree houses? Yeah, right. That's a good point. Should Tesla remove the single motor Model 3 but have a similar price to the dual motor so that all their cars have all wheel drive? Mm, I like the affordable options though. I'm all in favor. I want more rear wheel drive Teslas. I really was sad to see them get rid of the rear wheel drive long range Model Y. I think that would have had better efficiency. You would have got more range than you currently have with the Model Y. Um, Probably would have made manufacturing simpler to not have all that extra wiring for a front motor. Even if it was the same price, I would opt for rear wheel drive even if it was the same. That means the cost of ownership is lower. I got to spend less money on road trips. So yeah, I'll take rear wheel drive. So I'm not really interested in them removing the single motor Model 3. I would rather them add a single motor Model Y of some kind. That would be nice. I think the big companies just don't want to acknowledge Tesla. Plus, the bigger companies probably have to go through so many levels of management to put Tesla software in the cars. I think you're right as well. When will more gas stations adopt more Tesla slash CCS chargers? I don't think that's really in their best interest because long term, the amount of money you can make off of EV charging is far less than you can out of gas sales. So I don't see why you would want to implement that many. I mean, some gas stations do it, but it's probably going to be much cheaper to just build new EV charge stations at new places because gas stations are kind of built differently to accommodate for gasoline. You got these big tanks in the ground, and you've got like most of them have like 6 pumps that you pull alongside of, whereas with a EV charge point, with a supercharging station, you're better off making a bunch of stalls that all the cars back into. You can stuff like 30 cars all charging at once into a pretty small space. So it's more efficiently packed that way. So I get why gas stations don't want to try to transition over to the EV charging business model because they probably won't make as much. Um, Tesla's software is heavily dependent on frequent over-the-air updates, which would be harder to do. For example, VW wanted to put that software in their cars. Yeah, that's true. Tesla's software would have to be re-engineered to fit different motherboards and different CPUs and GPUs, so that would just complicate things. Why Model Y and not Model 3? Also thoughts on the Tesla phone that might come out. Tesla phone is not coming out. I don't know how many times we have to say that. Is that a meme? Tesla's not making a phone. Oh my God. There has not been a single reasonable source or reasonable leak that has claimed Tesla's working on a phone. Elon has on multiple occasions said phones are yesterday's technology. Neuralink is the future. He's not crazy interested. It has nothing to do with Tesla's mission statement. They would not benefit in any way from entering the declining smartphone market. It's already peaked and it's going down. There's no motivation to it. Tesla phone is not happening. Please, can we just get over it? But if you're asking me why I'm interested in the Model Y and not the Model 3, I'm not uninterested in the Model 3. My wife and I do like the idea of car camping and having, of course, more storage space if possible. But above that, I'm also super interested in the 4680 batteries and the structural pack. And I'm super excited for what that new manufacturing tech is going to look like and all the new changes they're bringing in Giga Texas. And they're bringing all of these changes to the Model Y first. So if I want to buy a new EV for the channel and I wanted to have the latest and greatest technology, 4680 Model Y is kind of top of my list of like that would be the most interesting to get a hold of and experience long term. Um, And of course, we would use it for car camping. And we can't, and I also go on mountain bike rides occasionally. Because of the weather, I haven't been doing so much lately. But I want to go on bike rides with my friends and my dad. And when we go on road trips, the tow hitch the Model Y has would be better for attaching bikes to, or even if I just want to throw my bike in the back of the car, that would be much easier to do in the Y than the 3. So it's just more practical. I mean, no surprise there. I'm not the first person to reach that conclusion. But if the Model Y ends up being too expensive, I'd be fine with the Model 3. It's not like I have to get a Y and I'll never consider a 3. It's like most of the things I like about Teslas are still present in the Model 3. Actually, the long range Model 3 is a really, really good value. I'll admit. It's $51,000 and you can go over 350 miles. That's pretty dang good. That's pretty tempting if I didn't care about storage space and car camping as much. You can haul bikes with the Model 3. You can do car camping with the Model 3. It's just not as good. And also the Model 3 is using more dated manufacturing methods. And I think that there's a lot that's going to change in the Model Y lineup soon. So I don't want to commit to buying a car yet until we know more about this Model Y that Texas is going to produce, which it sounds like it's going to start producing any month now. Could be next month, could be this month. There's just a lot of footage of cargo going in and equipment being loaded into the factory, and they're prepping it for full production. And on the last earnings call, they said that the first 4680 Tesla should be delivered early next year. So I assume that means they're somewhat close. We're trying to buy in cash. I would finance if my income was predictable and stable, but I'm a YouTuber, so my income is not predictable and stable at all. It's like this. So me and my wife like to avoid debt if at all possible. That's why we paid off our house and don't carry any balances on credit cards and that kind of thing. So we own our house outright, and we've put a lot away in investments. So after we've put a lot away in investments, we're like, okay, I think it's time to talk about the Tesla and buying that outright. When do I think Model Y will transition to yoke steering? I don't know if it necessarily ever will. Elon's biggest motivation factor with the yoke is that you have an unobstructed view of the screen on the Model S and X, but the Model 3 and Y don't have a screen back there, so the argument is less valid. The Cybertruck is just futuristic and post-apocalyptic brutalist design, so the yoke just kind of makes sense because there's very few curves at all on the Cybertruck, so having a wheel in there would just kind of look a little weird. So I think the yoke makes sense for that because it's Elon's baby, but transitioning the Y and the 3 to a yoke is kind of just added manufacturing complexity that doesn't really help anything. It just kind of annoy a bunch of people online. Many videos talking about Tesla's leaked phone without any sources whatsoever, and it's so sad seeing all the people in the comments that get tricked by it. I'll eat my hat if Tesla makes a phone. Yeah, they're not making a phone. Oh my god. It makes so little sense. When will Tesla start lowering the prices? Is it possible that the 25K Tesla is really the Model 3 when they lower the price? But adjusted for inflation, so it will be around 30 to 35K. I talked about that in a previous live stream. I got to get going here in a minute. I got to sign off. Come on, Dishy. I'm sorry it's so laggy today. It's really acting up. Yeah, I don't necessarily think you need to make a compact to hit the $25,000 price point. I feel like you could probably lower a bunch of the cost of the Model 3 if you just, you didn't try to give it a crazy amount of range, just give it a reasonable amount. The castings will lower the weight, the battery will be lighter and more energy dense with 4680. So as long as you're getting around 350 miles of range with 4680s and all that, you could probably get the price really low, but that's only assuming you can scale up the batteries high enough. But Tesla will not start lowering their prices until they actually start catching up on orders. Right now, the reason the prices are so high is because inflation is hitting pretty high, and there's so many people ordering their cars. Like they said on the last earnings call, they've been overwhelmed by the amount of orders they've received. The delivery dates being so far pushed back is not just because of the chip shortage. The chip shortage isn't helping, but look at how many deliveries they're having this year compared to the last couple of years. And in 2020 and 2019, it was not uncommon to see estimated delivery of 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. You know, you could order a car and get it in a month. And they were delivering a decent amount of vehicles. And now they're delivering more vehicles than ever before. And they're still saying estimated delivery 1 year, you know, year and a half. Still, it's crazy pushed out. So the demand has overtaken their production capacity. So there's really no point. If you know you're going to sell every vehicle you can make, why would you sell them for cheaper? You know, if you know it's a guaranteed sale as soon as you lower prices. So if they start catching up on orders and they actually can keep up with demand, that's when you can afford to lower the prices and kind of increase the number of people willing to buy your vehicle. Do you think I could use Starlink for gaming? What's your usual download speed? There's no usual download speed with Starlink. That's the thing, is because the satellites are constantly moving, your download's like this. So over time, yes, it will get better at gaming. Probably right now it's a little spotty, but if you haven't ordered a Starlink yet, you're still probably a year or two away from getting one. The backlog is super big right now. If you don't have a Starlink yet, you're going to be waiting a while. Like if I ordered one again, I would have to wait a year before I could get a hold of one. So by the time you're able to take delivery of yours, maybe they'll have enough satellites out there and the ping will be improved. But yeah, I think you could use it for gaming. That's what Elon keeps bragging about. It'll be good for. Alexander says, yoke makes sense. When driving aggressively, your hands will be in the correct spot, in my opinion. When not driving aggressively or for fun, you'll be an FSD. That's Elon's idea. I like the yoke. I would still buy any Tesla with a yoke. I think it looks great, and I'd even consider modding a Model Y to switch it to a yoke because I really do like the look of it, but it just doesn't, I don't see much motivation for Tesla to change it as they're trying to scale it so much. People want a Tesla, and with deliveries being pushed month to a year out, best to get your order in ASAP. Get your order in for the one you want, yes. But I just feel like there's so much we don't know that's all about to change within the next year. So I want to know more. You know, if the 4680 Model Y ends up being $75,000, then I'd probably settle for a Model 3. I don't want to spend 75 grand on it. And I don't really care for the current lineup. Both Model Y options they have available are not particularly appealing. They're using the dated battery tech. They're $60,000, and the range isn't as good as a Model 3 is. So it's like, yeah. When demand is greater than supply, you either raise prices or have a shortage. If you don't raise prices, then speculation increases demand and sends revenue to middlemen. That's interesting. People expecting stupid high prices to get even stupider. If people will pay it, then why wouldn't you raise the prices? Yeah, if someone's willing to pay the money. Anyway, this has been a lot of fun. I appreciate all the really, really good questions, our new channel members and the super chats. This has been a blast, but I got to get going now. I do have an EV video planned to drop. Actually, why don't I just end the stream with that one? It's actually, I'm glad it didn't come up because I didn't want to repeat myself too much, but it's a rant on the new NHTSA safety concerns about Tesla's supporting video games on the screen, and that's dangerous. So the video is live now. Feel free to check it out, and appreciate you all for watching. Hope you have an excellent rest of your day. Take care all. Bye-bye.